PJNet Live, getting ready for interview with Tim Donovan. And we have brought our studio up. We have a Deep Space Nebula background being installed. We are only using the rendezvous link, so no monitors are up, but the cameras are aimed, focused, and ready to go. We'll go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening and welcome to PJNet Live. If you're watching this live, it is now Thursday night, May the 30th, but of course you could be watching this on YouTube at some other time. You might be on Facebook or Twitter and somebody posted a link to this. However, you are watching this, we're certainly glad you're here. And we've got something kind of different and kind of special tonight. The other day, one of the things that we want to do here is be an encouragement, be a source of strength, be uplifting, be upbeat, optimistic. And so I just kind of put out a tweet the other day, or yesterday probably, and just said, if you've got a story, a testimony, an inspiration to share, hit me up. And maybe we'll have you join us on PJNet Live. So we did exactly that, and I heard from a young man who I have never met until now. In fact, let me bring him on set. His name is Tim Donovan, and Tim said he had something to share, and of course at the time I didn't know what it was. But yesterday, Tim tweeted that it has been 1,999 days that Tim's been sober. That makes today day 2,000. Tim, welcome to PJNet Live. I'm glad you're here. You're a brave fella to tell your story like this.
It's good to be here, Coach. Thanks for having me tonight.
I'm glad to do it. Well, 2,000 days ago, something happened, but I think the story must have started long before then. You've had a battle with alcoholism, and do you remember the first time you took a drink or got drunk? When was that?
It was probably when I was about 16 in high school back in western New York. I grew up in a town southwest of Buffalo, New York, a little town called Angola, New York. I was one of the late bloomers when I started drinking. All my friends probably started drinking when they were 12, 13 years old. I didn't start drinking until I was 16. But yeah, I remember getting drunk that first time. You know, it just progressed from there. And
what was your thoughts the next morning when you woke up? You know, hey, this is great. You know, I had a good time. Did you feel like it would ever take you where it took you?
No, I never in a million years did I think I would become this addicted to alcohol. I thought, just on the weekends, drink, have some fun with my friends and that, and then when I went to college for 2 years, which I majored in basically drinking.
Well, many did.
Yeah.
I would include myself in that I say fraternity. I wasn't part of a fraternity, but the lifestyle wasn't that much different. At some point, now did it escalate? Did it start with beer and wine and move on to hard liquor, or did you have a preference?
Well, mostly when I was younger, in my younger days, it was beer, and then as I progressed and got a little older, I'd do shots. My thing was, when I was drinking, especially living up north, was summertime was vodka and the wintertime was beer. And then shots of vodka, whiskey, things like that. As I got older, it was mainly beer, but then right near the end, before I gave it up, it was Jack and Coke. I'd come home from work and make myself a big old Jack and Coke every night. And I'd have 2 or 3 of those, and then just be blotto,
conked
go
out.
to bed.
Yeah, so it somewhere along the line, it went from partying and drinking as part of that to every day after work, and now we're not with beer anymore. We're with Jack Daniels. That gets expensive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did. I spent and wasted a lot of money on booze, and on top of the booze, near the end, um, I was working at Scott's Miracle Grow Company in Groveland, Florida, running a front end loader. And I developed a thing in my feet they call plantar fasciitis. It's where you have three bands on the bottom of your feet, and they got inflamed. Well, I use that as an excuse to get addicted to pain medication, Vicodin, Percocet, Oxy, whatever I could get my hands on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, that on top of the alcohol, I look back at pictures and don't even recognize myself.
So how did you get the doctors to keep prescribing you all these narcotics when basically
Well,
you're dealing with some, I mean it's not excruciating. It's not like you got a back dislocated disc or sciatica. Your foot hurts.
yeah,
Percocet, really, for that?
yeah, yeah. The prescription was for, he first prescribed me steroids, and I had already been on, a guy at work gave me a Percocet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Black market, just a guy. He said, I was complaining about my feet. He said, here, try this. And I did. And I'm like, and this is when I was using the steroids that the doctor had given me. And I went, well, the steroids aren't working, but that pain pill sure worked. So I went back to the doctor, and this was back when, before they got real strict with the pain medication. And I just said to him, I said, hey, these steroids aren't working, but can you give me pain medication? And he's like, oh, the only thing I can probably give you. And I told him, I mean, that's where it was weird to me, is I told him the truth. I said, a guy at work gave me a pain pill. I took it. I said, my feet felt better. And he prescribed me Vicodin.
Mm.
And yeah. And I mean, it got so bad, though, that I would get to work early and I would crush them up and I would snort them like cocaine.
Mm.
So, um,
And this guy probably was just, I mean, he wasn't a drug dealer or anything. He was just trying to help a
no,
friend, right?
yeah, he was just one of the guys that I knew from out there, and he and then it got to the point where I said to him, "Well, I can't get any more scripts from my doc. Can you get me pills?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can get them whenever you want." He says, "This is what it's going to cost." And I said, "All right." I said, "Nope, no problem." I said, "I'll figure it out." Um, so he was my, as they call it, the pill mills. He was my pill mill. I'd just go to him whenever I needed pills, and
Mm.
he hooked me up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if when I quit doing those, probably about a year before I quit drinking, um, because one Saturday morning I woke up and my wife and daughter had left the house, and I got up and I was hurt, and I'd been in the loader all day the day before for 14 hours, and I was just sore, and I was like, I had two pills left and put them on the counter and crushed them up, and they were pretty big, as they say, lines, and I did them, and as I did the last one, I came up and I came back down, and my nose I must have busted a blood vessel or something.
Mm.
And I looked up in the mirror, and my face was all bloody, and I said, I got to quit. I said, I got to quit doing this because I don't want to end up dying.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I quit doing the pills, but I kept drinking for another year.
So at this
So,
point, you're married, right?
yes, I'm married. I have a house. My daughter's in
Well,
high school getting
at,
ready.
at the point you're still you stop using the prescription drugs. You're married. Any children at that point?
Well, yeah, we had been married for. I hid all of this. I hid all the prescription pills from my wife. She had no clue what I was doing. Um, oh, we had been married. We got married in 2006, so this is probably around 2000, 10, 11, 12,
Mm-hmm.
maybe,
Okay.
right around that area.
Mm-hmm.
When I met my wife in 2000, it took me, or 2001, it took me 5 years because I had come out of a previous marriage or divorce, and it took me 5 years to propose to my wife,
Mm-hmm.
Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And we had good times. I mean, I wasn't doing the pills, but right back then, it's when I took this job with Scott's and blah blah blah. Every excuse in the book I could give um, for doing it, and I hid it from her. I didn't ask for help, and I just, I'll deal with the pain this way with alcohol and pills.
Mm-hmm.
And she kicked me out for a while. Um,
So she was on to you.
she was onto my drinking. She
Mm-hmm.
knew about the drinking.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't too sure. I mean, because I drank right in front of her.
Right.
She wasn't too sure about the pills, what I was doing, but she knew I was doing something. So she uh she told me I needed to leave the house for a while, and I thought, well, there we go again.
Mm-hmm.
No marriage, nothing. I have nowhere to go. Um, oh, and
So where did you go?
huh, I went and stayed with a friend for a week. Stayed with another friend for another week. Um, was working at Disney at this time because I left Scott's and took a job with on a contract, a 1 year contract, Disney, doing research for their inventory systems. My wife was working out at Disney as a full-time employee as a material attendant there. We would ride to work together.
Mm-hmm.
She dropped me off, picked me up. Um, she would drive in, I would drive home, things like that. Um, and when she kicked me out, I stayed with a couple friends, and then I went and looked for a place, trying to find just like an extended stay type
Mm-hmm.
place,
Right.
and that was on a Friday night. And I had a friend from high school that reached out to me that Friday night and told me that her and her husband were praying for my marriage, and that you know um, she just told me that you need to give yourself to the Lord and pray and do all this. And I didn't I believed her, but I still wasn't sure. Saturday Saturday evening, my wife called me and said, "You can come home." Um, and I did. Um,
How
came
did that
home.
affect you as a man? Your wife giving you permission to come to your home. That hurt.
Oh, well, I she was the best thing that ever happened to me, Coach. And I knew I had messed up. I had made bad choices, and for her to tell me I could come home, it was a relief. Um,
Did you say
didn't hurt.
something? Did you say something like, "I've got a new second chance here, and I'm gonna straighten myself up"? Did that thought go
Uh,
through your
I,
mind,
I
or do you think you just okay? I whew dodge that bullet. Mm-hmm.
no, no. I knew I didn't dodge it. I knew I had to make some changes. So that was Saturday evening. We got up Sunday morning and we went to church. And I had gone to church on and off. I grew up Catholic, so I was in church every Sunday growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was an altar boy, uh, you know. But when I went away to college, church I always
Mm-hmm.
believed in God, but it wasn't until that Sunday that I was sitting in the church here in Leesburg, Florida, the Father's House Church, and it was like the pastor, that sermon was pointed right at me, and about having a personal relationship with the Lord. And when that happened, uh, my wife was sitting next to me, and she says to this day, she says, there was just, you were trembling. She said, I right then and there, I accepted the Lord and Savior, Lord Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And they asked you, to publicly to raise your hand. I raised my hand, and someone came over and put their hand on me. And I mean, this might sound weird, but when the guy put his hand on my shoulder, I kind of looked to my right, and Coach, I swear, I saw the Lord come into my heart, and the devil leave. Um, it and from that day forward, I said, I'm going to give myself to the Lord. Now that was in October. My wife, this is where me and my wife disagree about my sobriety. She says from that point on. I said no. I said because we went to. I had the friend who had been praying for me. Her husband. I became good friends with his husband. Well, they came down to Florida. We ran a 5K at SeaWorld together in December, on December 7th. And December 6th, went down there and stayed at a resort. They had paid for it for us. They blessed us. They said, just come down Friday night, and then you and JB will get up and go run the race. And so we did. And me and my wife, we didn't get down there till late. And so me and my wife went down to have something to eat. And my wife said, well, you can have a beer if you want. And I said, are you sure? She was like, yeah, go ahead. So I had one beer with my dinner, and she's like, if you want to have two, you can have two. And I said, no, I'm running this 5K tomorrow. I want to, I don't want to get. So I went up, and we went and ran the race and all that. I guess while I was running the race, her and Mary were talking, and my dad was going to be coming down around Christmas, after Christmas. And whenever me and my dad would get around, and I don't blame my father, it was my choices. My dad couldn't handle his booze. I couldn't, because I was the type, once I started, I couldn't stop. And if he told me to stop, I was just going to drink more.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife voiced some concerns about when my dad was coming down. And my friend told me about her concerns, and I said to Michelle on the way home from Orlando after the race, and that day, I said, if you don't want me to drink anymore, I won't drink. I'll give it up. I'll give it to the Lord, and He'll give me, because I really hadn't been drinking from October to December.
Right.
But I wanted it to be official for her. She wanted,
right. You
some
wanted to make a
assurance.
commitment, right?
Yeah, I wanted to make the commitment to her. So December 7th, 2013, I haven't had a drink since then, and it's, I couldn't do it on my own. And let me go back just for a minute to the day that I gave my life to the Lord. At our church, they used to do it, and this is going back 6 years ago. So they pull you into a room, if you're, and they had someone pray with you. And the guy that did it prayed Jeremiah 29:11.
For I know
29:11.
the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
Amen. Yep. And I walked out of that, and I'm like, that it's just weird that it was 29, not 29, but the 11. And it'll always stick with me, because 11's my favorite number. It was a number of a hockey player that I grew up watching, and I just adored. And, so it was like, I'm like, Lord, what are you doing here? I'm okay. You got my attention now. So, I mean, and, I'm not one to say that, I'm a sinner, just like, if anyone says they haven't sinned, they're lying to themselves. So I just, by God's grace and mercy, every day I wake up and I lay my head on that pillow, and then I wake up sober, and I just I can't get over how good the Lord has been to me.
All right, Tim, it's clear to me that the Lord helped you through this, and some people that were not actually that significant in your life, helped you reach that point. Now, I've known some people who've gone through this, and many of them rely heavily on support groups. Alcoholics Anonymous or some other form of support group. What's your story?
I didn't. Um, I, I thought about going to AA when I first started, but I just kept praying and praying and praying, and the Lord kept saying, I will keep you sustained, son. Just keep on this path. I was running a lot. I haven't been for the last 2 months. I thought I had a Achilles here that I thought I tore. I got a little nervous, so I took a
Yeah,
break from running for a little
that
bit.
sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Dang
Tim, get your
moth.
butt out there and run. All right.
Yeah,
I'm a
I
coach.
know.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's pain, there's discomfort, there's pain, and there's injury. You need to know the difference. Tim,
yeah.
it's funny. Well, okay, so you didn't have any formal group that sustained you through this. You just did this on your own willpower, assisted, of course, by the Lord. But yet, at the same time, some of the things that you have said here tonight, as well as some things we've talked about off the air, everybody that goes through a 12-step program or whatever, they come out. There's a lot of similarities. There's a thread that is woven into this fabric, into a tapestry, and all of them, including yourself, say, I can't do it on my own. And I think that until you get to that point, I don't think you can really pull out of it as long as you think your own strength is enough. And I find it
I
odd that the verse that you cited is a verse that in some of the struggles in my life, if I have clung to that verse, Tim, I promise you, with white knuckles and bloody fingers when there was no reason for hope. No reason for hope. And I hung on and I hung on and hung on. And it hurt. I wouldn't send my worst enemy down some of the trails that I have traveled. But at the same time, by doing so, I feel, I look back at some of the things I did, and I say that couldn't have been me. Have you ever had thoughts like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had thoughts about that, and I when I first got sober too, I think what helped. I I read a book by and I'm gonna butcher his name, Nick Vujevich. He's the he has no arms, no legs. He was born
Mm-hmm.
that way. It's called Life Without Limits. Um, and he had a acronym for the word faith, and it just stuck with me. It was full assurance in the heart. And when I saw that, it was just like, okay, God does have a plan for me. I am important to him, and I'm going to have a relationship with him, and that just stuck with me. And I guess that's why, my stepmom had asked me how I did it on my own and how I didn't go to a program. And I told her, I said, it's the Lord. It's not me. I listen to what he tells me, and he just he really the, never gave me the word, I guess, is what I'm looking for to go to a program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this, me answering that tweet yesterday,
I was gonna.
um,
Yep, you're on it. You're on it. Keep going.
Well,
You're on it.
me answering that tweet yesterday it was like right before I answered it, right before I went on Twitter, I keep a sober clock on my phone, and I had just looked at it because I knew 2,000 days was coming up this week, but I wasn't sure when. So I'm like, oh, I looked, I went, oh, 1,999 yesterday. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So, and then I went on the Twitter and I was scrolling and I saw what you had put, and I'm like, I am grateful for the 1,999 days. I mean, I knew I was going to post something today for 1,000, but I figured, you know what? I'll reach out. I'll put that I'm grateful for that, and that was the Lord. That was the Lord. You putting that tweet out and then me answering that tweet, and now I'm here tonight talking to you about it. And if anyone sees this video, I mean, who might be struggling with something, not just alcoholism, it could be any type of addiction. I don't care what type of addiction it is. There's just, you've got to surrender it. And that's what I had to do. I had to surrender it and say, I can't do this. Like you said, I can't do this on my own. There's just no way, Lord. I need you. And I realize that every day. Now, has it been easy? No. I'm not going to lie. It's a struggle every day. And, I mean, but I know I don't want to be that person.
Tim, what's looking back over your shoulder, what's the worst moment you can think of?
The day I got kicked out of this house. The day I got kicked out of this house and I let my family, I thought I was going to lose this family. Because it's not just my wife. It's not just the daughter I helped raise since she was 5. My wife had 2 older kids at the time. They're still alive. I mean, we have 3 total kids, and they had kids, so I was a grandfather also. So getting kicked out of the house and then getting an email from my oldest grandson, who at the time was 10 or 11, I think. Yeah, because he's 16 now. So, and he told me that I was no longer his grandfather, and that he never wanted to see me again. Because he had lived with us right after he was born for a little bit, him and his mom. And, it hurt because I was with, I mean, I watched him when his mom would go to work sometimes, before my wife came home from work, because at that time I was working nights. It would be just me and Gabe for 2-3 hours a day sometimes. So those 2 times probably are the worst rock bottom of my life.
So yeah, I want to one just commend you, Tim, because not for overcoming the alcoholism, although that is commendable. But one of the things that burdens me, Tim, is we all have a Christian walk. We all have a story to tell. And what we do here is try to give people a safe place, where they can tell their story. But so few people do. So when I reached out and you responded, I feel good about that. I feel good about your journey, because I think you've turned another corner, because now you've gone from fighting a personal demon and winning to taking that to a broader audience. Have you ever had the opportunity to share publicly what you're sharing with us now?
Not really. I mean, I've done it in small groups. We have, with our church, we have life groups, they call them, and I've shared this there, and I've shared it with. I volunteer Wednesday evenings at our church with our youth group. Now, I haven't done it with the whole group, but with the high school boys, I had a couple of them. We were on went on a trip, an evening trip to they have this farm here. It's called Cottam Farms. They do a big light show for Christmas, and over in Weirsdale, Florida. And we went there, and I had three of the guys in the car with me, and we talked. We were talking about life in general and about decisions, making the right choices, and how I didn't make right choices.
Right.
Um,
Well, Tim,
if you go back to
I just want to challenge you, because it takes a certain amount of humility. It takes a certain amount of courage to share what you're sharing. But what you've gone through, you wouldn't want someone else to go through that. And if by sharing it you can change some lives, I'm sure the Lord will say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And now you and your wife, you were just telling me just before we went on the air, you all have you're considering starting a ministry of your own.
well, we have started a ministry of our own. It's called Building Lives Through Faith. We're on Facebook. Um, where she's not really a Twitter person, but I'm gonna try and get her to put Building Lives Through Faith on Twitter. I might have to do that, but what it is she was in a very bad car accident in October of 2017. She was on her way up to help her mom in Georgia, and on I-75, and early in the morning, and it was a multi-car wreck, and I was almost to work in Sanford, Florida, so that was a worst 2 hours of my trip. I think I prayed more than I have in my whole life driving up, because wasn't sure, couldn't talk to her. Just a good Samaritan called me and said, "You need to get to Micanopy, Florida, mile marker 374, I think." And when she got out of that, we live about an hour and 15 minutes from Disney where she worked. So the ride was just too much for her after 8 years and with the
Mm-hmm.
accident. And she told me that the Lord had put this on her heart 20 years ago, but she wasn't obeying. So finally we talked and talked and talked. And I said, "Listen, if he's putting it on your heart to start this ministry," I said, "then you need to obey this time." I said, "We'll figure it out." And it just so happened that if she waited till September of 2018, which you gave her on her birthday, September 26th of 2018, she officially retired from Disney. So that's when we started the ministry. We just started, asking for donations,
When you
can
say
we
the ministry, what exactly do you do?
Well, what it is, it's a thrift store. I mean, we we take donations from people like Goodwill or the Salvation Army or anything, but it's all done in our house, and then we clean everything up, and then we take it up. We just got we run a storefront. We have a store. It's a retail type store, and but the thing is like I've done it because I work it on Saturdays. I go up and help her on Saturdays when I can. Um, but like somebody will come in, coach, and they'll say, and you don't judge, but they'll say you can tell when someone's in need, and it's like if they're really in need and we feel that the Lord's telling us to do this, we just give it to them. We say, "Here, just take it, be
Mm-hmm.
blessed." My wife says when she gives it to somebody, which I have to get a little bit better at, when I do it, she asks if she could pray with them
Mm-hmm.
about their situation. And, it's just, it's given back to people who we've been so blessed in our lives. And it's giving back to people who aren't as fortunate. Oh, excuse me, as fortunate as we are.
Okay. So, well, Tim, you and your wife are doing a great job. I'm just, I just want to provide people a chance to share how Christ has worked in their life, and it's just good to hear that you've done what you've done, and you've come from where you've come from to where you're at. And I just encourage you and challenge you to share and let the Lord work through you to reach out to those in need. And it sounds like you're well on the track to doing that. And I appreciate you sharing your story tonight, Tim. I really do, man.
Coach, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story. And if anyone out there, just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Put your pride aside. You know, I had a good support system, and I was so prideful and couldn't see that I had that support system to reach out for help. And if you put your pride aside and reach your hand out for that help, the Lord will provide for you.
I know in my own life, you can't really leave. You can leave God, but He won't leave you. He's always right there if you'll just reach out. And Tim,
Yes.
I'm just grateful that you did reach out, and I know that when you do that, God's hand of mercy and of rescue is right there, and the forgiveness is just it's like being a new person, you know.
Yes, it is, Coach. Yes, it is. And I really appreciate you doing this. And if anyone, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. You can message me, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to talk to you.
Tim Donovan 560 on Twitter. Tim, thank you for joining with us tonight. Have a great one, and we'll be in touch in the future, I hope.
Yes, sir, Coach. Have a great night. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, you want to find Tim, you need some help, you want to share a story. Well, first of all, if you have a story to share, we want to hear your story. Not only do we want to hear your story, we want you to share your story, because, folks, we are actually commanded to make disciples. And let's not keep that wonderful gift that is inside of our hearts as Christians. Let's not keep that a secret, okay? Let's tell it. And we'll provide a safe place right here for you to do that on PJNet Live. And thank you, Tim, for sharing. I know that's difficult. Well, we've had some really good nights this week. It's been a really great week for PJNet, and it's not over. Tomorrow night, I've already been in touch with Refugee, and he has got a lot to say tomorrow night on the issue of pro-life. And Judge Clarence Thomas, and he is one of the most analytical minds I have ever encountered. And some of the things that he is going to share, you probably haven't thought of. I certainly haven't, and I hope that you'll be here to join us for that. And so from there, we'll wrap it up for this live portion of PJNet, and we'll get back to some good old praise, worship, and fellowship. Thanks for joining us on PJNet Live.